I've got 2 half jars of honey that I brought back from Spain, and I want to today try to recreate a honey cake that I ate in Spain a couple of years ago. So these 2 jars of honey I brought back from Spain, and that was no mean feat because you can't take liquids in your hand luggage. As to why they're half jars of honey, I will get to that bit in a moment. But there are 2 different varieties of honey here that we bought direct from the beekeepers, who also run a little restaurant near where we were staying. We've got rosemary and we've got mountain. You'll see these 2 honeys obviously are quite different in character. So this one's quite dark and kind of cloudy. This one's a little bit clearer and more golden. So I'm just going to have a little taste of both. Actually, I'm going to sniff that first. So yeah, that one's quite sort of neutral smelling. So despite the fact that that's rosemary honey, so honey from rosemary flowers, it's quite neutral for honey. It's very sweet, quite a kind of normal honey flavour there. This one is mountain honey, so this is from all the flowers that grow up in the mountain. In fact, if you watched my Spanish nature walk, probably the flowers that I was walking past and all of those different aromatic bushes. So let's taste this one. This one's really different. It's got lots of floral and resinous and herbal notes in it. So this one I think is one to save and enjoy on toast and things like that. This one is a more normal honey. I think we'll use this one for cooking today. So when I visited Spain a few years ago, I did a tiny bit of travelling on my own, and I had a cake in a restaurant, a honey cake in a restaurant, and it was just amazing. And I don't know how they made it, and it probably would have been rude to ask for the recipe. So I'm going to try to recreate it today. As far as I can tell, what I had was a variety of Catalan honey cake, although I wasn't in that region, interestingly. But it must have been similar to this. So it's a sponge cake, and it's got, before it's baked, it's drizzled with oil and then flour and oil and flour in layers. And that creates a sort of crust, and then that crust is soaked with honey. I know the cake that I ate was different from this one because it had lemon in it, and this doesn't have lemon. So I've kind of taken this recipe, and I've looked for honey and lemon cake recipes, and between that and my memories of what I ate, I'm going to try to recreate something like the cake that I had in that little cafe. 250 grams of self-raising flour. I don't know whether sifting flour makes a difference. Some people swear it does, other people say it's not necessary. I don't see how it can do any harm. Not all of the sweetness in this cake is going to come from honey. We're going to have 100 grams of caster sugar, a little pinch of salt, 125 grams of fat. Now, butter would have been ideal here, but I'm going to be sharing this with somebody who's lactose intolerant, so I'm using a vegetable-based baking spread. Kind of margarine, but they don't call it that anymore. Now I'm going to have 3 large eggs, and I'll crack them into a glass first, because then I won't get shell in my cake mix, but also I had a bad experience with an egg for the first time in my life recently, where I cracked an egg and it was very, very bad inside. And I don't want to ruin my cake mix by cracking a bad egg into it. Okay, so that's nearly everything, except I now want 150 grams of this honey. So this was a 1 kilo jar. Now, why is it half full? I travelled to Spain with my sister to see my mum, because it was her birthday, and we went to a little restaurant and we saw this honey, and we got really excited about it and ended up buying 2 jars of it. And so we carried it home, and I'm sharing it with my sister, which is why she's decanted half of it into other jars, and I've got the remaining half here. That's why it's 2 half jars. Getting it home was quite a lot of fun because you can't take liquids in your hand luggage. But fortunately, as I say, we were visiting my mum for her birthday, so the packaging we'd used to take her presents out, we reused on the way back and managed to make these jars safe for the hold luggage, and they survived. Anyway, that is all of the ingredients for now. So this should be, if I've done it right, one of those cake mixes where you can just beat it together with the electric beater. Stop as soon as that's smooth. And I'm going to taste raw cake mix. Oh, it tastes good. I know I'm eating raw egg, not recommending you do. And my cake batter, which is quite a firm batter, is going to go into the bottom of there and then let it spread out. I'm not sure if the camera was running for that bit, but I've just transferred the batter into this cake pan, this 8-inch cake pan, which is lined with reusable plastic lining. And then the bit that I think is going to make it distinctive was the lemon zest. So I've got this zester tool, which you could use just a grater, and I'm just going to grate on the zest of the lemon here. Try and get it as even as I can. Obviously, if you're going to eat the rind of a lemon, you want to buy unwaxed lemons if you can. Or I think you can probably put them in boiling water or something like that. If you don't like lemon zest, I suppose you could leave that part out. And this is the part that makes this cake what it is, which is we dust the top with flour, drizzle it with a mild tasting olive oil, just a kind of drizzle on top like that. Another layer of flour, another drizzle of oil, another layer of flour. So that's 3 layers of flour, 3 drizzles of oil. And that's probably about 100 ml of olive oil in total. Now that's going to go into the oven, 180 Celsius for about 40 to 45 minutes. But we'll know it's done because we stick the skewer in it and see if it comes out clean. Right, so off we go into the oven. Right, while that cake is cooking, I'm just going to prepare the drizzle that goes over this, because it was drizzled with honey and lemon juice, because it definitely had some acidity to it. So the juice of the lemon, I think that might be enough, half a lemon, because it's quite a large lemon and it's very juicy. And then I reckon about 100 grams of honey maybe. Now it's tempting to use this mountain honey, which has got a lot more fragrance and character to it. But the cake, I remember, didn't have all of that. It was just nice, clean honey flavour. So I'm going to stick with this rosemary honey, which has got a much cleaner flavour. Yeah, I reckon that's about right. So 100 grams of honey. I'm just going to whisk those together, which will take a while. The honey will eventually dissolve into the lemon juice. Yeah, here it goes. Yeah, so the honey is dissolving into the lemon juice, or the lemon juice is diluting the honey, whichever way you kind of like to think of that. And that's to be drizzled over the top of the cake as soon as it comes out while it's still hot. Quite a sweet cake, obviously loaded with carbohydrates, but that's what cake is. Let's just give that drizzle a little taste. Oh, that's nice. Nice balance of acid and sweet there. Right, set that aside for when the cake comes out. 40 minutes has elapsed. Time for a quick check. Looks good, but still a little bit jiggly in the middle, so another 10 minutes. A further 10 minutes has elapsed. That's 50 minutes in total. It's not so jiggly now, so I'm just going to test it with a skewer. And I would say that's done now. This is coming out completely dry, this skewer. I did bake it basically on the side of caution. I don't want this to sink in the middle. It probably will a little bit. But I don't mind it being a little bit dry in the middle, because we're going to add all of that honey drizzle, which is part of the reason I'm poking it all over with this skewer, because I want some of that to go down inside the cake. I did make the rather foolish mistake when I first pulled this out of the oven of touching the top of it with my bare fingers, and it was incredibly hot because of course the top of it's covered in oil, and it stuck to my fingers and burnt me. Who would like to see that bit? Okay, here we go. A further 10 minutes has elapsed. That's 50 minutes total. Ow, that's really hot. Ow. Before this cools significantly, I'm just going to decant that honey and lemon mix into this jug to make it a little bit easier to carefully drizzle it over the top, because I want it to go down into those holes I poked, but also I don't want it just all to run down the sides. So I have a feeling that the cake I had in Spain was baked in a shallower pan than this, because I don't think it was as tall as this. It might have been more like a tray bake sort of thing. And I searched and searched, and I could not find the recipe for the exact thing, the honey and lemon crusty-topped cake that I ate and enjoyed in Spain. I suspect it's probably somebody's mum's recipe that's a closely guarded secret, but if you know something that's a little bit closer than what I've done here, do let me know about it in the comments, or email me the recipe if you want to share it. or something like that. Anyway, just going to let that honey drizzle soak in now before we try and take this cake out of the tin. So I'm going to let that cool for maybe half an hour or something. Right, the cake's had about 45 minutes cooling now, so I'm just going to push it out of the tin. Looks a little bit brown, but I think that's just because of the way honey caramelizes. Anyway, time to cut a slice. I can hear a crunch as that knife goes through the crust there. That sounds amazing. Okay. And there's the first slice, and wow, look at that. It's very soft and fluffy inside. Just going to cut a couple of slices of that, and then we'll take it outside and enjoy it in the sunshine. Spanish style honey cake. Cup of tea for you, Jenny. Cup of coffee for me. Take your pick. So it's really, really light and fluffy. I'm going to try a bit of this topping actually, because it's got like a crispy topping on it. Gosh, it's almost so crumbly you can't pick it up.
That is really nice.
Isn't it? I wouldn't say I've completely nailed the flavour, but I think that might be down to the fact that the lemons we get here are not the same as the lemons they get in Spain. The lemons I've had in Spain are just so much more lemony.
Still quite strong at the top though.
You still taste the lemon, but it's nowhere near as kind of fresh and zesty. But that's a nice cake, isn't it?
Really nice.
So all in all, really super happy with that cake. It came out really, really light and fluffy. It actually would stand a little bit of cream or ice cream or creme fraiche or something like that with it, or maybe yogurt. As it stands, it goes really well with a drink, like a cup of coffee. As I say, if you know anything about the authentic version of this that I'm trying to replicate here, do let me know. Yep, really happy with that. So I hope that was interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.